Hey, my friends, it's Brendan, and welcome to your Success Monthly
Tắt liền.
Conversation with me. Yep, we are here live. I'm out in the wood at my writer's villa today. Having some exciting things going on as you're watching this. I'm actually getting prepared to shoot my next Oprah Winfrey Network course for Oprah.com. We'll be shooting out here the next couple days, which is really exciting. And so I share that because as we're jumping into today's conversation about competing interests, if we have any issues with Wi-Fi connections or I seem a little it's not coming through very well today, not through me, but technologically, then that's why. We're out in the woods, ladies and gentlemen, and we've got a big conversation today about competing interests. It's hard to hit high performance when you got 50 different things that are pulling at you and calling to you. And, oh God. See, we're live, just in case you ever question that. It scared me. Is my voice that loud and annoying? Who knew? So we're here to talk about competing interests. How do you figure it out when you've got so much going on and so many people? Now, I am here live with you, so yep, I see you, Robert. Hi, Sherry. Hey, Britta. Hey, Kathy. Thanks for joining us. Hi, Maria Jose. Thanks for coming again. Michael, Sue, welcome all. Now, as I go through today, as always, I try to keep pretty focused for you guys. So I've got my teaching takeaways for you, and then I'm going to come back to your questions. So do me a favor. As we're going through this, any question that comes up about your life, post it in the chat room. Any ideas you're just struggling with, personal development or professional development, post it in chat room, because what I'm going to do, I'm going to teach about competing interests, and I'm going to come back to you live to take your questions. And so I want to thank you all again for being here live with us today. I've got you on my phone, I've got you on my laptop, and yes, I see you all joining us here, so thanks for being here with us. We've got a lot to cover today on competing interests because so many people struggle with this. I recently just spent some time with a private client who's in a holy heck of a mess because they've said yes to so many things, and they're all very, very important. The person feels a high obligation to do well in each of those areas, but the person took on too much, and I think we all can relate with that. I don't know how you're doing right now. You're either in a place where you're super busy, or you're in a place where everything's cool and there's harmony, or you're in a hot mess. Depending on where you're at, I think you're going to find a lot valuable in this conversation today, because I'm asked this all the time. You know, how do you make good decisions about what to say yes to? But because I've covered that a lot in High Performance Academy, and I hope you're in that course if you're not enrolled. We've got an upcoming we have a High Performance Academy live seminar coming up in San Diego, as you can see via the link down below. I hope that you'll join us there. But because I cover a lot of how to choose things, I just want to talk about what happens when you've already chosen. Let's just say you're already there. You're in a place of competing interests, and we'll always be in a place of competing interests our whole lives, where sometimes you feel like you have to sacrifice your health for a short amount of time to get things done. Sometimes you feel like you have to sacrifice a relationship over here in terms of how much time you're spending with that person because you've got so much work over here. Or other times everything has to stop because you have to care for somebody. Other times, your hobbies get on the back burner for 2 or 3 years because you're building something. I'm sure you can relate with all of these things because it's just part of life. It's always going to be this juggle of moving parts. And what I like to do is just help you get to that point where you don't find yourself in overwhelm so often because of competing interests. Because the reality is very few of us can take on, 3, 4, or 5 major things at once. And yet we all want to take on more of them. And we have to learn to say no more often. We have to learn to set boundaries more often. We have to choose better things more often. And if we're not doing those, we really do struggle. And I know you can relate with this. I've been there too. I mean, gosh, my summer was awfully busy because I'm about 4 months over on a book deadline right now because I've really come up with something incredibly unique, and I can't wait to share it with you all. But it's been a lot of research and during a time when I thought that book project would be done, I had stacked on other things to do, so I've had to keep them all going at once. So I share this from that same personal journey as you're on. There's a lot to keep going, and sometimes it's super hard. So how are you going to do better in dealing with competing interests? So I've got 4 big ideas with you, and then I'll take some of your questions related to this topic as well. I think that one of the mastery level things that I've learned to do in my life is this first piece, and that is to remove the non-essentials. To remove the non-essentials. I really believe that if you just got good at this would be one of those needle-moving strategies or skills, if you will, that helps everything else work better. In high-performance sort of parlance, we talk about this as a meta skill. As this skill, if you're good at this one, you're going to be good at the rest of these things. Because this is where most people really struggle. They have so much of their day eaten up by non-essential things. And what I mean by non-essential things is not only is it functionally non-essential, meaning you don't have to do it, right? It's not serving any end outcome or cause, but it's non-essential because it doesn't bring you any joy or meaning. You know, the greatest single incident of my life, outside of, you know, having my blessed, you know, relations with my family and friends, is my car accident. Because at 19, it made me understand very clearly what were non-essentials. For me, a non-essential is anything that doesn't help me feel like I'm fully alive, I'm living my life or my calling or my truth. It's things that I know aren't important to my relationships at all, and they're things that doesn't matter in terms of make a difference, doesn't make me feel a sense of pride or satisfaction or joy that I contributed them. I just got very clear of like what doesn't matter. Because, you know, if you've ever been in a hospital bed, it's very clear what doesn't matter, right? You think all these things matter. And, you know, a lot of non-essentials that people think that matter. Stuff, as an example. You know, they spend all this time organizing, creating, buying, getting, categorizing, researching stuff. Like, I can't tell you how many people spend so much time on stuff. I was just at this client's house, and I was like, I said, walk me through your day. And I love kind of doing ethnographic research where I follow somebody throughout their life and just take some field notes on what they're experiencing, what they're doing. And this person on their counter had all these magazines. And these magazines were, magazines from like, you know, Pottery Barn and, you know, 50 other things like that, you know. And I said, wow, there's a lot of magazines. Do you ever look through this? Oh, yeah, all the time. I said, what are you looking for? He says, oh, just, you know, I just like them. And I said, well, okay, that's cool, but why do you do that? And it's not like I'm trying to take away from this person's creativity, but as we dug down, that's not the thing that gives that person creativity. It's just doing one of the most non-essential things in the world. And that is being a browser. Don't be a browser. Because most of the time, when we say competing interests, I'm going to assume from the start, from the get-go, we're talking about real interests of yours. Things that you are really passionate about. Things that really matter to you. That's why it's hard to choose, because these things are all important. But if you're trying to juggle in with all the important things, things are not important at all, what they're going to do is they're going to eat away at your foundation of success like termites at the foundation of a home. Like little bites. The little, 20 minutes or 15 minutes or 5 minutes that this person looks at these magazines that are just stuff that mean nothing to the person's life. They're not looking to shop. They're not looking to buy anything. They're just kind of, oh, wow, this thing showed up in my house, so I guess I have to look at it. That's called being a stupid consumer. Like a stupid consumer just takes whatever is given to them and eats it like, an idiot because it's there. It's like, oh, okay. You got to be more conscious than that. Just because someone puts something in front of you doesn't mean you look at it. So for those who are browsing all day long on Facebook, like I got nothing else to do, and then later on you complain, I'm so busy and overwhelmed. No, That's your problem. That's your inability to manage your time and your attention towards things that are essential to you. And that's what bothers me at this day and age. Frankly, it's very difficult to be a compassionate coach right now because people say, I'm so busy and overwhelmed. What are you doing? They're looking at Facebook for 20, 30, 40 minutes a day. I'm like, what? That's because you're not managing your mind's addiction to the dopamine drop that comes every time you see something new. Because, right, this is a variety machine. And a variety machine that is just like a hamster connected running on something for a food pellet. This is your food pellet for your brain today. And because it's fun, people spend 20, 30, 40 minutes, an hour, 2, 3, 4 hours a day browsing. And then they have the gall to say, you don't understand how stressed I am. You don't understand how busy I am. No, what I understand is you've never mastered this meta skill of removing the non-essentials. It's very, very important. What does not matter must not be on your plate. And you need to stop putting it there. Because what it's doing, again, I'm talking about competing interests, please recognize the context here, is if you got interests, things that are important to you, and you're juggling in all those unimportant things, it's going to wreck you. All those little distraction pieces, they add up. You've heard me say it, if you've been to High Performance Academy, that the average American watches 4 hours of television a day now. 4 hours of television is over a decade of their life, 24/7, in front of the boob tube, doing nothing that is meaningful to them per se. It's cool to have escape. I don't mind escape, but make sure the escape is something that you feel is going to revitalize you in a real significant way. You know, it's like I tell a lot of people, they're like, well, I just, man, I'm really fried, man. I just need to watch an hour of TV. I'm like, you know what? Go take an hour of yoga. I'm really fried right now, man. I'm gonna, do some other escapism, like a video game. I'm like, you know what? Go meditate, because there's gonna be benefits to that yoga and the benefits to that meditation that are going to multiply your later performance, where there's going to be no benefit to blatant consumerism. And I think that's really important for people to understand today, because they're getting lost in the digital stream. They're drowning in the digital stream, and yet they're saying that they're so busy. They're really not. And so just identify the things that you can remove. And, for me, I've just removed so many things that I used to think were important, because so many times in my life, I've lost somebody, or I've been in a hospital bed, or I've moved. I'm sure you've done it too, right? Do you remember that last time you moved and you got rid of so much stuff and you're like, I so don't need this? How freeing that was, getting rid of stuff. If you haven't read Essentialism, a book called Essentialism, or The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up, read those 2 books. It will just help you get in a new mindset. Or even read another book called Vagabonding. Vagabonding? Is that right? I think that's what Vagabonding. Read those 3 books just to get back in your mind, right, I need to get down to the core things in my life that are important. One of the reasons the Zen masters were so Zen is because they weren't collecting lots of stuff. They weren't being distracted by lots of things. You work with high-level masters in any sport. They're not trying to do 1,000 things. They're actually very minimalist. And I think that today, becoming a little bit more focused on essentialism or minimalism, I think will help serve you being able to manage the things that matter the most. I'm constantly, evaluating what's non-essential. And I evaluate the non-essentials based on a bigger picture of my purpose. And we're going to talk about some of the goals I have, but I just kind of think about my life in a continual basis in terms of legacy, because I faced the end of my life so many times that I've had to say, what really matters to how people remember me? What contributions really matter from me? And getting rid of the things that aren't unique to you or won't really move the needle, the things that you're replaceable on, let somebody else do it. Do the things that are essential to you, contributing your unique ability or your unique purpose or your unique joy. Focus more on those and learn to say no to the rest. Learn to get rid of those. Let me give you an example. Most people would not call a non-essential, but I label right away. I've been offered probably 7 or 8 major television shows in my career. And it's almost just, not to be flippant, but it's the easiest and fastest no, because to me, I recognize all the non-essential things that would come into my life from having to have like a daily talk show, as an example, which we've been offered. It's like on major networks. It's like, yeah, that'd be interesting, but I don't want Dr. Phil's life or Dr. Oz's life. Nothing. I mean, I think those guys are great, but I don't want their life. I don't want a call time every day where I have to be on set every day, doing things that, no one's going to remember that show, years later. It's not going to be around. I'm not saying those aren't valuable and important and reaching millions of people, but all the non-essentials of me having to get up, get makeup, do all these things, have a schedule, teaching topics just because it supports the sponsor or supports the producer's need. I was just like, man, I don't want all those things, because what's essential is that people can access my stuff and they can watch it and they get value from it without all that other crap that has to be thrown in for entertainment's sake. I was like, it's just not essential to me. So it was an easy no. But in every area of my life, I'm like, what's non-essential? Let me give you another example. We're about to start shooting here on location. We're up in the woods. We're miles and miles and miles from town. And what I used to do when I first started filming here was I would drive here every morning. And that commute was kind of whacking me out, like making me tired. And I figured out just recently, I was like, well, this is silly that I'm driving out here. We're doing a course as an example. I'll drive out every morning and drive back in every night. And I just thought, this is crazy. And I found a little crappy hotel that's not too far away that I can just go there and stay instead of going all the way back to my home, because it's taking out this commute. It's not essential that I get back home every night to do that. I can say, you know what, I'm going to take 3 nights, stay in this crappy little hotel, but at least I'm not going to have to be commuting for an extra hour a day or whatever it is. So how can you remove everything? So a good way to think about non-essentials, I know I'm going off on this, but this is, like I said, a meta skill, is look at everything you're doing in your life as a habit and say, what if I cut that out, or I could cut that out? Can I cut out a commute? Maybe I can't cut out a commute 5 days a week, but could I work from home 2 days a week? What if, I'm watching 10 hours of television a week? What if I could strip that down to just 1 hour a day? What if I'm cooking all my meals and instead I said, you know what, I'm going to have meals delivered at least once a day? What else can you do that will bring more convenience into your life and strip out something that you think you have to do but you don't? Because I really think that is powerful. Go read another book recommendation towards this is like The 4-Hour Workweek from Tim Ferriss. Great guy. What's up, Tim, if you're watching? Absolutely necessary to get rid of stuff. I think people really struggle here. And a lot of people's overwhelm has nothing to do with the competing interests. It has to do with all the garbage in between that they throw in. And they don't realize they could easily get 10 hours a week back. I mean, think about that. If you got 10 hours a week back to focus on the essentials, you'd be a weapon. And that's how, personally, I've gotten so far in my life, is recognizing the non-essentials. I hope that serves. Okay, number 2 is a big one. Now let's assume you've got some competing interests that are real. Brendan, I've got 3 major projects, and they're kind of pulling at me, and I'm not doing anything necessarily well, or, I've got these projects, but they might hurt my health over here. Here's what's important about any project, any goal that you ever take on. Clarify your payoffs. Clarify your payoffs. So if you feel overwhelmed right now, what I'd love for you to do, just bust out a piece of paper, bust out a journal, and draw a bunch of circles on that page to represent your competing interests, right? That could be like, you take out a piece of paper and you draw a couple things. Here, you might have like, I'll give you an example here in a second. You're trying to maintain a lot, let's say in my industry, I'm in the thought leader industry, the expert industry we call it, and I've got lots of things going on. I've got lots of opportunities, and I'll just show an example. So, I've got a book I'm working on right now. I'm always maintaining the blog and the YouTube show and the podcasts. I've got seminars coming up. I've got coaching, and these are a lot of things that really, if you think about it, these are actually all one interest. The interest is furthering my mission as an expert. See, these aren't the competing interests. These are all just strategies serving one interest, one page, right? A lot of people, they think that these things compete. These are all serving one thing. A competing interest would be now like the kids, right? Now like the TV show. Now like over here a new opportunity with a project or a celebrity. It's like when everything starts stacking up, now it's a lot of competing interests. So what I'd like you to do is just draw out a bunch of circles of everything that you're doing, all the major projects. Then what I'd like you to do, can you grab any of those bubbles and put them all on one, meaning like this, right? These were all just one interest. And what you'll tend to find, most people only have 3 to 5 interests. They think they have a lot going on. The reality is they end up lining up on one page. And now it's on one page. You go, oh, maybe I've got 3 or 4 of these pages, but I've finally grouped my interests. Most people have never grouped their interests of what they're working on, and so everything feels random and easily overwhelming. But when you have it all on one, then you can say, oh, well, now I can schedule a little better because look, let me now schedule my interests versus just each little bubble. I hope that makes sense. I'll get more to that in a moment. But in this point, what I'm trying to share is clarifying the payoffs. And what I'd like you to do is clarify what's the benefit of this thing? What's the benefit of that thing? What's the benefit of that? What's the benefit of that? A lot of the reasons it feels like we're juggling things at the same time is we think they all have to happen at once. And what I tell people is what you need to do is identify which ones will give you the near term, the short term, and the long term payoffs. Okay? Which will give you the quick wins and the long term, wins. Which wins the battle, which wins the war, right? Short versus long. So as you think about all of this, you should know the payoffs of every project you're working on. And I can't believe how many people don't know this. So they'll say, Brendan, I'm working on a book. I'm like, okay, great. Tell me about the payoffs of this book. They'll go, what do you mean? I said, well, you said you're going to write a book. Yeah, what's the payoff? Well, I'm going to reach millions of people with my book. And I go, you're going to reach millions of people? Okay, well, let's assume that's true. But you're working on this book right now. Tell me what else. What are the other payoffs? And I'll get consulting, and I'll get coaching, and I'll get seminars, and I'll get all these payoffs from the book. And I'll say, okay, could you get those payoffs without the book? I mean, could you start a seminar without a book? I did. Could you start coaching without a book? I did. Could you start, an online video or blog without it? Yes. Could you start an online course without the book? Yes. So the whole payoff that you believed that the book was going to give you, you could get just by doing the thing right now. Let me give you another example. I just met a person, great guy, and he was working on a book. And he said, it's just so hard right now. I'm working on this book, and I've got my family and my health, and I'm trying to maintain this old business I had as I transition to this thought leadership career. And I'm trying to do this book, Brennan. And as we started talking about it, I discovered that he was basically going broke. He had no revenue. And he's spending all his time right now working on a book when he has no revenue now. And I said, man, you understand, the payoff on the book, that's like a year or two, man. Because once you finish the book, you got to get it published. You got to be able to find the publisher or decide to publish it yourself. Then you have to set up a marketing campaign. The payoff on this book, man, that might be a year or two, and you're broke now. So you're not having these competing interests. You're focused on the wrong thing. We got to move the book out. And right now, you need to create an online course like this week that you can start selling next week using the tools that are available to us today. You can be making money in 2 weeks, not 2 years, and that's what you have to do for your family. And it was because his payoffs weren't clear. You know, he was thinking about something so long term that in the short term, he was letting his other interests, his family, suffer. Does that make sense? So you need to be very clear about the payoffs on every single project you're working on. When is it going to pay off? Is it short term or long term? Is there any other payoffs that you could, any other interests that you could move around, focus on them now, and move this thing out? Let me give you an example. Like even just this week, I'm shooting an online course this week and moving my work on my book out. Because it doesn't necessarily matter when my book comes out. Well, it does, but the course is a shorter term win and also has long-term payoff. And so I had to be very clear about the payoffs of what I'm going to work on this week. And I do this literally every week. My sort of schedule is on Sundays. I kind of consider everything that's coming up in the upcoming week. And I just look at everything that I put on my agenda. And I always ask the question, should I be working on that interest based on the payoff? And a lot of times it makes me move things around. Maybe I scheduled something 5 months ago, and there it is, sitting right there on my Wednesday at 2 o'clock. And I'll look at that and I'll go, what's the payoff of that? Well, I could focus on that, but I need a payoff over here earlier, so I'm going to take this thing, I'm going to reschedule it, and put this thing in its place. Does that make sense? So what I want you to make is, this is not some life purpose discussion that just happens once. I do this weekly. I'm thinking about the payoffs of my entire schedule every single week. And that's why my competing interests never feel like I'm getting crammed on them. It's because I'm like a master chess player every week, thinking strategically. What's the payoff on this? When is it? Is this a big enough payoff for me to focus on now or later? And so what we must do is draw out all your major projects or interests that you're working on and really think about what's the payoff there. Let me give you another example. In a personal example, like a relationship example. There was a time when my wife and I were working, and there was this huge opportunity, like a major, huge opportunity came to me. And it was like, wow, if I did this, the payoff would be amazing a couple months later, right? But we were so busy, we really needed time away, like a vacation. And so we said, we'll take a vacation. And that opportunity, I just removed it. And instead, I just said, let's go on vacation. Because the payoff was the maintenance and the growth of my relationship, which is a bigger, longer-term play than any opportunity. If you haven't studied life studies, meaning what you regret or don't regret or remember or are proud of at the end of your life, always the number one thing that comes towards the standing around you as you are passing on to the next round. Who do you say who is going to carry on your legacy? You think about your relationships much more than these short-term things. But people are always doing it. They're making the non-essentials essential cost of their own health, their relationships, which is their ultimate legacy. So it doesn't make any sense. And so if you're not checking in on these things, what you end up doing is you end up saying yes to everything. You end up just living your life as a priority. And when you're doing that, that's happening. The reason people don't prioritize is they're not asking the payoff questions. They're not thinking about what's the value of this project, when will it pay off, and what's the potential threat to the payoffs of these other things, my health, my relationships, my mission, right? So please do this work. It will serve you, I promise you. I know I'm going a little long on this topic, but it's really important. What else do I do to make you'll do me a favor? I think these next two pieces are going to get to a lot of the more finite prioritization. Questions, and I'll get to them.
Tự nhiên mà quần tội kéo lại cuối cùng á, giờ không quần nữa cả quần luôn.
I love this one, and that is
Cấm nói sao?
system for evaluating
Em ơi, 8 hả?
and evaluating specifically competing
I
interests.
want to go.
So when it's like I've got two great things to
Bathroom.
focus on, which one?
Bathroom.
Now, I've covered this before in high performance academy, so I'm going to give you a new model of thinking. But if you haven't gone through high performance academy, there's a lot there about evaluating opportunities. And I've taught that previously in the Success Accelerator as well. So I'm going to give you a new way to think about it. It's a simple point system that
Cơm gần vậy tới giờ cơm thì ngủ.
how you're two competing
Hai thằng đây trứng mỗi thằng trứng một kiểu. Thế ra đây, để bà cho nó tắm này.